Hello, and welcome to the first module in this masterclass on cosmic forces shaping a new world. I'm Suzanne Giesemann, and it's my honor to help you understand your true nature in this first module. The problem facing most of us these days, the problems you see in the world, are that most humans think we're only human, and nothing could be farther from the truth. We feel like we're separate, we're alone, it's us against them. This kind of separation, this is the illusion that causes discord and disharmony. I'm here today to teach you how to find harmony and how to thrive by understanding your fundamental nature is wholeness. Nobody tells us that. Most people walk around feeling they're broken, that there's something wrong with them. I know we can all identify with that feeling, but what a blessing it is when you come to know you are not broken at your fundamental level. There is nothing wrong with you beyond the human story. Anything that tells you otherwise is simply what I call BS, and that stands for belief system. What did you think it meant? I spent my entire career as a Navy officer. I rose to the rank of commander and had the honor of serving as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff's aide-de-camp, his right-hand man, so to speak. Throughout my Navy career, I had no idea there's a greater reality. I had no idea that there are cosmic forces, actual sentient beings we can call upon to give us insight, to help us know we're not alone, to show us we are part of one interconnected web of being. Being, a state of wholeness, is your fundamental nature. Think about it. What's the one thing you're aware of? Awareness itself. You exist and you know it. That in itself cannot be divided. Awareness is indivisible. The field from which all of your experiences arise in a human body is unified, completely whole, and all of us share this field. Each of us is here in human form to experience our unique story and how it plays out. But they all arise from a field beyond any story. So the goal on this journey of coming to understand the cosmic forces that unite us all is coming to know yourself beyond the story. I say that there are 3 E's that lead to the evolution of our awareness. The first one is educate yourself. Educate yourself about who you really are, and we're already working on that right here, right now. The second is experience for yourself your true nature as consciousness in expression, as wholeness fundamentally. And then when you tap into that field, when you attune to this fundamental wholeness, engage the other patterns of consciousness, sentient beings just like you, but less limited than our human focus, who you will encounter when you step into expanded states of awareness. We're going to get into how to do that in future modules. For now, my goal in this initial module is to help you understand, perhaps through a few analogies, how you can be both whole at your fundamental level and feel a bit separate as a human being. I like to use the example of a disco ball. A disco ball is one light. It extends that light outward through various lenses on the surface, each one of them facing just a little bit of a different direction. We are like the lenses on that disco ball, and yet we share the same light within. That's the light of consciousness. The wholeness that is your essence is the entire light, the disco ball. But if you use the lenses on that disco ball to represent human beings, there are about 7.5 billion lenses on this one light, and therefore each of us is viewing the external world upon which the light shines through just a little bit of a different lens. So thinking that we all have to think alike is rather silly at this level of being a human being. We came here as direct expressions of this conscious, sentient, creative, intelligent wholeness for the unique experience that each one of us lives in our human lives. So I believe that this path, the challenge for us is undoing the human belief system that says you're only human. Clearing out the beliefs that cover up the wholeness that is foundational. Another example would be, for example, imagine a vast open desert area. All that space is just open and empty. And someone comes along and builds a warehouse in the desert. They put up walls and a ceiling, basically compartmentalizing the space. But the space within that warehouse is exactly the same as it was before, only now limited somehow. And the space outside and the space within can't possibly be separated except temporarily. That's kind of like the human body. It appears to separate us from the field from which the body arises, and yet it's just a temporary compartmentalization. Ultimately, the walls will come down and we realize that our true nature, the space, the spaciousness, was never really changed. So just a couple of analogies, and surely you've heard the analogy of consciousness or the wholeness that's your fundamental nature being like an ocean. And you and I are waves within the ocean, temporary arisings of the very water of which the ocean is made. You can't have an ocean without water. Water makes up the ocean. The waves cannot be separated from the ocean. And each wave is very unique from the other. It arises and it subsides, but it can arise again. So don't worry about subsiding and dissolving into nothingness. Right now, you are the ocean expressing itself as a wave. Just a few things to get you thinking in a more dualistic nature. Ultimately, there is only oneness, this wholeness from which all that is arises. The duality comes when you realize you are both human and wholeness itself. Now, the human being is a field of information that is constantly communicating with the entire field of consciousness, the wholeness. There are fields within fields. Every cell in your body is a unique field that is sentient. It has that same intelligence in it because everything that exists arises from this intelligent whole field, the unified field, if you want to call it that. So a cell is one small field. Your organs form a larger field. Systems within the body, a larger field, such as the respiratory system. Then we have the human body itself. But that's not where you as an entity end. That's just one compartmentalization of you. The larger you would call the soul. The soul can be embodied as it is now, as you listen to this, but after the body dies, the soul continues to exist, and it can choose to continue the story of you without a physical form. That story of you, that role that you're playing now in human form, will always be part of the soul and always be part of the unified field. Always is a term that exists within time. The soul and the field itself are beyond time. It's holographic. All information that ever arises in that field will always be part of that field. I've come to understand all of this as the result of the death of my stepdaughter. When I saw her lifeless body, I had the inner knowing that arose from the field of all knowing that there is a part of us that cannot die. That you might call the soul. Or it's just the field itself. There are various levels. The more expanded your awareness, the more you dissolve into the field itself, the less limited your thinking. So think outside the box with me now. That's what I had to do when I made it my mission to discover if my Susan, my stepdaughter, still existed after she was struck and killed by lightning. I went into an expanded state of awareness on a daily basis. In other words, I started meditating. The week she passed, somehow I knew if I was going to connect with her, if this thing called a soul still exists, then I needed to get outside my limited human thinking. Boy, did I find a lot when I went into those expanded states, and I'm going to teach you how to do that as well. I discovered there's so much more than this external physical world. There are worlds within worlds, like I said, nested fields. The goal of this masterclass is to get you to see that we are all interconnected because all fields interact. It's one big matrix that we're part of, and every bit of it is connected to every other bit. What if we were to see our world that way? What if we were to see and understand each other as sharing the same fundamental wholeness? We would stop hurting each other. We would stop hurting our environment. When I learned that I could connect with Susan very clearly, I needed to be able to prove that this wasn't my imagination. So I engaged with her. That's the third E, engage with other entities, conscious, sentient, intelligent beings that arise from our shared wholeness. I asked Susan for evidence that I was actually communicating with her. Tell me something going on in your biological mother's life, I said to her, that I couldn't possibly know. And she told me 3 things. Just put them right into my awareness in her very own voice. She told me, my mother's cat is sick. My mom just had a funny incident with a ladder, and she has Christmas lights up inside her house now, even though it was October at the time that I encountered Susan in meditation for the first time. I came out of meditation, I said to my husband, Ty, my goal, I accomplished it. I connected with Susan. She's still right here. And she gave me evidence. We need to call her mom and verify this. So we called Ty's ex-wife, and she validated. She had just brought her cat home from the doctor with medication. Over the weekend, they had lost a ladder, couldn't find it. Everybody looked everywhere for it, and it turned out to be right under everybody's nose. And she had Christmas lights up inside her house, year-round, in fact. Where did those 3 pieces of evidence come from? They came from a disembodied spirit, the soul of my stepdaughter, Susan. But they came because Susan, just like you and your loved ones who have passed, and the masters, all arise from one sentient, intelligent field of being. This field is not limited to our universe. It is cosmic in nature. Cosmic means beyond the universe, all that is. Cosmic is the wholeness. And you are part of one cosmic team that is just waiting for you to recognize who you are and ask your team, which is the same team all of us share, for help in knowing you are not alone. And as my team of guides, Sanaya, says to me all the time, you are so very loved. So why don't we know this? It's because most of us are raised by other human beings who have forgotten they are part of the wholeness. It hasn't been part of our culture to talk about these things until now. People used to call this woo-woo. We wouldn't talk about talking to dead people, but I have to tell you, the paranormal is becoming perfectly normal the more we understand consciousness as foundational to our nature. It doesn't arise from the brain. It's prior to the brain. I could tell you stories for a week on end without stopping of communicating with higher beings. Let me tell you now about a young man named Wolf, that was his nickname, who gave me proof that we are all souls and that the soul knows things by tapping into this unified field that sometimes don't filter down into our conscious awareness. Just like my stepdaughter Suzanne, this young man named Wolf was struck and killed by lightning. The difference is Wolf left behind proof that he knew that was how he was going to die. He left a poem hanging on the wall of his apartment that said, "It is time for the light of nature to free my soul." He was speaking of the bolt of lightning that would kill him the next day. He was struck while sitting under a big birch tree in a park in Plymouth, Massachusetts. When his parents found that poem about the light of nature freeing his soul, right there on a poem was a drawing that included a picture of the very tree where he was struck and killed. What's truly amazing about his story is that in that picture, there are 2 roses drawn at the base of the tree. It turns out that Wolf's parents put 2 roses when they went to the site of where he was killed as a memento to him, not ever having done that in the past. And yet he saw that they would do that and put it there before it even happened. How can we explain things like this? How do you explain that that young man, Wolf, cut out the front of his t-shirt that had a lightning bolt on it and tacked it to the wall across from that poem the day before he was struck and killed by lightning? I can explain it because Wolf is one of thousands of souls I have connected with after they passed from the body. He appeared to me in awareness in my darkened bedroom one morning, shortly after I met his parents. I felt the presence and I asked, "Who are you?" And he began to tell me things about himself, 45 pieces of verifiable information. His parents later said, "That was our son you were connected with." I did a special sitting with them and brought Wolf through again, and he had a message for all of us. In fact, his message formed the basis of what I teach today. I call it the awakened way of living, and I hope that you'll learn to live according to the principles of this path that Wolf shared with me. It comes down to 3 principles. Number 1 is understanding what I've been talking about to this point, that you are not only human, you are wholeness, the field itself, expressing in a human body for a while. Number 2, you're part of one big web connecting all that is. That to me is the promise of all of this work, the understanding that we're not separate, that we're not alone, and it behooves us all to cooperate then and find ways of finding better solutions for our lives here moving forward. You're part of one big web connecting all that is. And the 3rd principle of the awakened way of living is understanding that you find connection and healing through expanded states of awareness. Right now, as you listen to this and I talk to you, we're in what I would call normal waking consciousness. It's kind of hard to be aware of the whole field while we're so focused on our normal waking consciousness and this external world. But you can learn to go within and experience these expanded states, and I'm going to teach you how to do that. And it's then that you truly come to experience who you are as spacious awareness and not this limited, apparently finite human being that most of us think we are. It's that mistaken belief that leads to wars, that leads to mistreating our planet, that leads to all the turmoil we're experiencing now. So wouldn't it be amazing for more and more of us to come to understand we are both human and souls, and ultimately all of us are wholeness itself. That is the goal of this masterclass. This has been just a taste of what lies ahead, but a foundational look. You have to first understand your true nature. That begins with asking the deep questions. So I'd like you to begin a process as we begin these modules of self-inquiry. That means asking the deep questions. My guides advise me the most important question you can ask is, who am I? To those who are new on this path, the answer might seem obvious. Well, I'm me. I'm this person in a body. Yes, you are, but so much more. I've given you a couple examples already that show that awareness doesn't die when the body no longer works. My Suzanne story and Wolf's story, and I will share more stories as we go along. But if you're not this body and this external experience, what else are you? So asking questions such as, if I'm not only human, what am I? Who am I? What is consciousness? What is the body? Is this really as solid as it seems? What is the mind? These deeper questions in the process of self-inquiry will lead you down a path which is so much more joyous, more interesting, more peaceful than most humans live. That's my goal for you. This life is meant to be an adventure. We came here to experience it fully. That doesn't mean it's always going to be easy. There will be ups and downs always. That's the nature of life. But suffering lessens so much when we come into harmony with our innate wholeness. Harmony is the goal. Peace results when you are harmonious with your fundamental vibration, the one note that joins us all. I call that love. To me, the definition of love is lack of separation. When you come to know that all is connected at the fundamental levels, you understand why we say love is all that matters. I hope that this course will help you come to understand that, come to find it within yourself instead of looking outward for it. It's right here. It's always and already here. It can be no other way.